if you've never had a rhythm of on and off with the whole technological panoply of entertainment, distraction, information, my number one recommendation would be give it a try. You will learn so much when you flip the off switch.
Should I cancel Netflix? This one's a doozy, alumni. We're continuing our Big Questions series this week as we dig into the topic of entertainment and what role it should play, if any, in our lives after graduation. And I'm really excited to be joined by Andy Crouch for this conversation. Andy is a partner for theology and culture at Praxis. He's a past executive editor for Christianity Today and the author of numerous books, including The Techwise Family, Everyday Steps for Putting Technology in its Proper Place, and The Life We're Looking For, Reclaiming Relationship in a Technological World. As you can imagine, Andy has spent so much time thinking about healthy relationships with technology, and he has some really helpful, practical insights for us on the topic. But I also expect that some of his thoughts might leave you feeling a little challenged. So prepare yourself as we prepare to answer the question, should I cancel Netflix? Welcome to After 4, your podcast for navigating life after graduation. I'm your host and guide, John Steele, and this one's for you, alumni. Andy Crouch, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Oh, I am so glad that you're here, Andy. This is a lot of fun. Yes, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the yes and for you stepping in around, especially around a topic that we're going to touch on today, Andy. As I think about at least a portion of your CV here and the things that you've done. You're an author and a thinker around things in particular, relationship and technology and the interplay of those things. You've got a few books that you've released: The Techwise Family, My Techwise Life, which you wrote with your daughter.
Mostly my daughter wrote when she was in college.
My goodness!
I just have a sort of a part in the book, but yeah,
okay, that is fantastic, and The Life We're Looking For. And you're a partner for theology and culture with Praxis. You're an InterVarsity board member,
that's right,
and a former InterVarsity campus minister at Harvard too. Man, like what a resume you bring to this conversation right here. So I'm really excited about that. Andy, those are a few of the things that you do, but could you provide maybe the introduction that I can't and tell us a little bit more about who you are?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. The thing I think might or might not come across from all that is I just, above all, love people. I mean, of course, I'm seeking to first love God above all and in all things, but
yes,
I just love people. And I happen to also really love ideas. So that's why I'm an author, I think. Writing is thinking. Writing's the best way to actually work out what you think and what you ought to think.
Yeah,
I love music. I was trained as a musician, trained both in the Western classical tradition and in the Black church, though I'm myself white, as we say in America. So I love, but a big part of what I love about music is that it's like the most amazing thing people can do together, as a group is to make music. So that's been a big part of my life. So those are some things that I sometimes worry that, I don't know, I worked for 10 years at Harvard. That name conjures up all kinds of things that I want, frankly, nothing to do with because I want to be part of the kingdom of Jesus, which is not the same as the kingdoms of this world. So anyway, that's a little maybe more about who I really hope I am.
Yes, that's great. Super helpful. And Andy, can I say that I hope at some point we get to hang out in real life together, because I'm also a musician, worship leader, and would be super fun to just get to jam together sometime.
As long as you don't play piano, because there's nothing less useful than two piano players in the same room.
I can play almost zero piano. I primarily play guitar and sing. So we could have a great time. Time together. All right. One of these days. We'll make that happen. Andy, you're joining us in the middle of, I think, but I'm biased. I think a series of really interesting conversations. We're asking big questions, and it's big questions that we either know that our young alumni, recent grads are asking just because it's natural for the stage of life that they're in, Or maybe being people that are a little further down the road, we look back and say, here's some questions I would recommend you consider asking.
If only I'd been asking that question.
Yes. So there's some that we know, some that we're inviting. And today we are asking the question, should I cancel Netflix? And
that is not a question I was asking when I was 1 year out of college.
Yes, exactly. Me either. It was actually shortly a few years after I graduated from college that I even started my Netflix account. So, I did, at that point in life, I didn't even know what the heck Netflix was, really. But I know that you had a similar conversation relatively recently with Caitlin Chess on her her podcast, Curiously Caitlin, some really fascinating stuff that came up there, especially in light of some of the continuity, discontinuity of, this life and the life after Jesus returns. And so I'm hoping that we can keep leaning into that, but in the context of not necessarily yet life after Jesus returns, but life after graduation. And what does it look like? So Andy, let me just throw it to you. Big picture question. If you were sitting across the table from an InterVarsity alum who's just graduated from college or from grad school, whatever it might be, and they asked you that question, Andy, should I cancel Netflix? What would you say to them?
Okay, I would ask them a question back before I gave any answer. I would ask, have you ever canceled Netflix before?
Oh, interesting.
So if the answer is no, you should totally try it. In other words, if you have lived your whole life or your whole kind of media consuming life attached to a Netflix subscription, presumably first your parents maybe, and then probably still your parents, probably today still on the family account, right? Yes. And you've never tried like life without that particular form of entertainment and so forth, you should absolutely try canceling it and see what happens. Yeah. So that would be the first thing.
Okay.
Second thing, if the answer is yes, then we have a really interesting question, which is why did you cancel it last time? Why are you back? What have you learned about why you left and why you've come back? Is this an addiction perhaps that you've kind of tried to quit and then found you really needed it? Or did you actually come back for a really healthy reason, But if you have never, if you've never had a rhythm of on and off with the whole technological panoply of entertainment, distraction, information, engagement, all that stuff, my number one recommendation would be give it a try. You will learn so much when you flip the off switch. So that would be my top level thing. And then, so I can go a couple levels deeper. What's behind that question is my pretty deep conviction that Sabbath is like one of the organizing principles of the cosmos, I guess. And I hesitate because the cosmos seems to just kind of go on every day like it does. For example, this is a problem for dairy farmers. Cows need to be milked every day. They don't seem to keep the Sabbath. But there's something about the stewards, priests, dominion, image-bearing people that God places in his creation, that for them to fully image God, and therefore for creation, including even the cows, to flourish, there needs to be this rhythm of on and off, this rhythm of work and rest. And this is, by the way, a rhythm of a good thing, work in the world, which is given to us by God, and yet something that if it becomes omnipresent, 24/7, we will become enslaved. I mean, one of the reasons to practice Sabbath is given to the people of Israel. You were once slaves in Egypt, and you're not meant to be that way. And so even your work, even when you're free, you're no longer enslaved. Your work is perhaps a return to the good. You still are supposed to have a day off a week from it. And then actually a year off every 7 years, where the land rests, you rest. And if that's true for the core image-bearing activity of human beings, which is to work in the world the way God himself worked in creation, how much more true for these ambiguous, ambivalent things that we call modern entertainment and modern technology. So, So I'll give you one more sentence, and then we can see where I want to go with this. But I don't have a Netflix account, and we haven't had one for years and years. In fact, I was trying to remember the last time we turned on like our TV and watched something on it. I think we've done that maybe twice in the last year, maybe.
Wow. Okay.
So it's not actually part of my own life, kind of big screen entertainment or, programmed entertainment is just not a big part of my life. But something that is a fairly big part of my life, for better and for worse, is social media. And a couple people I really admire on social media adopted this practice, and then I followed them, which is one day a week, which is Sunday, which is when I take the kind of Christian Lord's Day, day of rest, one day a week, and then 1 week a month. I do this for the first 7 days of each month. We're recording this in July, so July 1 through 7. Okay. And then 1 month a year, for me, that's June. I'm off it entirely. So I never even, frankly, at this point, even think to look at Instagram or Twitter, the ones that I use on Sundays. The first 7 days of each month, there's actually a banner on my calendar that says no social media. It reminds me because, it becomes kind of a habit to check it.
Yeah.
But those 7 days I don't. And then every June, the whole month, I'm entirely away. And frankly, by the end of June, I almost forget I used these things. And I have to kind of remind myself, hey, it's July. I can go back if I want to.
Yeah.
I have found, to me, this is a way of embedding a practice of Sabbath in the most distracting and entertaining thing in my life, which is social media. I've just found it so revolutionarily freeing to have that rhythm. And it changes, and this is the beautiful thing about Sabbath, the one day changes the other 6. And the way that you engage in the world in those good ways that we're meant to engage for the 6 days is reshaped and is set free of certain kinds of idolatry and is made more intentional and thoughtful by the one day, or in this case, the 1 week or the 1 month when you're not using or doing those things. So that would be my big framework. There are some other things we can talk about, but that would be how I would approach the big topic. Probably. That's
really helpful. First of all, your initial answer reminds me of the answer to almost every question in adulthood, which is, well, it depends.
Totally.
Which is great because we're just continuing to firm up the fact that there's very little just black and white thinking available to us.
No.
And that even when you do say yes, that the answer might not necessarily be, it could include this, but might not necessarily be for what we might think, which is that like, oh, well, Netflix and the type of entertainment that's on there or whatever is just bad and you should avoid it because it's, poisoning your mind, just the content that's on there. And it's way more around rhythms of health and rest, of withdrawing and resetting. And is this something that sort of stands in the way of a healthy reset and reframing of your mind? Because we've been invited into these steps of rest and reset. And so, even just that framework right there feels like a really positive step for us, that we're not necessarily demonizing some sort of technology or whatever, but that it's like, no, this is for our benefit and for health. So I appreciate that very much. And you've mentioned a word already. You've broadened us in a helpful way, in a couple of helpful ways here, but you've used the word entertainment, and that really is kind of the heart behind the question here. It's not about it's not about Netflix,
but
it is. Yeah. Yes, but it is around entertainment. So I
cancel Netflix, start Apple TV.
Exactly. It's just, it is I heard you talking again in your conversation with Caitlin about some of the beauty of what Apple has done, and also there's some beauty that they've brought to the world in the way that they engage with technology, and also some even just the image of the bitten apple. Like, oh man, okay.
Right.
Anyways, not to take us down
we're talking about entertainment, kind of as a category.
Yeah, exactly. And so that makes me wonder, in some of your follow-up thoughts here, do you have something that helps us start to identify, like, are there helpful guidelines around entertainment or media that either, well, maybe not media necessarily, but does Scripture give us some helpful starting points, or are there trustworthy people from the past that have done a lot of thinking around this that helps us start to establish helpful guidelines for the way that a Christ follower's life, how should it even be oriented around media, or what role should media play in that?
Wow.
Or an entertainment?
Wow, indeed. Well, this is a tricky question. I mean, so especially if you ask it, if you frame it as, where do we go in Scripture? And then in a way, all the people who have faithfully reflected on Scripture, which is the wisdom that's been accumulated through what we call the tradition of people, wise people becoming wiser as they reflect on Scripture, and the tradition, like where do we go in that to get guidance for entertainment? And the problem is that we are living on the far side of a very recent, like, continental divide, watershed level development in human history, which is the development of recorded entertainment. So as musicians, you and I implicitly are very aware of this, which is that until about 100 years ago, if you or I said to our family or our friends or our congregation or whatever, hey, let's play some music, that could mean only one thing, which was someone's going to pick up an instrument, or someone's going to begin to sing or use their body in some way, often with the help of instruments, to make pitched and tuned sound. And it's going to be a human, in the moment, creative act. That is, and it's going to live in the air around us. We're actually going to feel it through our bones. We're going to participate in it. Probably all of us will end up contributing to it in some way. And that's what playing music means for all of human history until 100 years ago, when we figure out how to record audio and play it back. And today, when you say, like, oh, the party's starting, let's play some music, you never mean let's all pick up an instrument. You mean turn on recorded music. And now, when music is played, quote unquote, in the modern world, 99.109 of the time, it means recorded entertainment that some, professionals have done, who did pick up an instrument, and they did have that resonant creative experience, but we consume it. So you're, in a way, this is a subset of consumer culture, or the rise of a culture that you actually can passively experience rather than actively co-create.
Interesting.
And when you ask, where does the Bible address this? The problem is, it was unknown to the world of the Bible.
Right.
So my family was just on an amazing, once-in-a-lifetime kind of vacation in the mountains, and my wife had this beautiful idea, which was, we were away. It was an incredible gift that someone gave us to have a week away in the mountains. And so she said, during this week, why don't we, at every mealtime that we can, read one of the Psalms of Ascent, or a Psalm of Ascents. So these are the 15 Psalms that come right after Psalm 119. And they're the songs, really, that the pilgrims sang as they went ascending up to the mountain of Jerusalem, the Mount of Zion, to worship 3 times a year, as Deuteronomy kind of laid out. Okay. And this was entertainment back then. Like, what you did was, first of all, you went places, holy places. Life was worship. It wasn't diversion. It wasn't distraction. It wasn't just fun. There's actually, if I may say this, very little fun in the Bible. In the sense of, like, harmless, sort of meaningless, enjoyable. That's not actually the world of the Bible. The world of the Bible is much higher stakes. And so the music that's made, the stories that are told, the drama that's lived out, if you think about kind of drama and what we watch on Netflix, right, is film and television. The drama was the drama of God's life with his people that we are co-creating as we physically move through the world. And that's the closest thing they've got to entertainment. It's totally wrong to call it that. So the way the Bible guides us in this is making us realize almost all of what we call entertainment is, like, way second best to the fullness of life that we observe, ultimately, the one true human being, Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus we call Messiah, Christ, that his life was lived out with this kind of fullness of intensity of creative kind of activity, not just because he was Jesus, but because he was Israelite, because he was Hebrew, because he was an ancient person. And this was what you did. And our world, where we get to just watch things that maybe very talented people do, but we don't participate, we don't co-create, That is a very recent thing. And I think we should just realize it's almost always second best to what we could be doing individually and collectively.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It almost sounds to me like sort of the rhythm that we have sitting around the table of like, oh, how was your day today? And sharing with one another of our experiences at work or at school or whatever, that it's almost like that's what our entertainment is meant to be, is like sitting around the table recounting the adventure that we've been on and the ways and have it almost be like a group examine sort of experience of like, and here are the places that I met God in the midst of that and the people that came along with me, and almost like comparing notes on here are the places that we even if it wasn't in the same space, but here are the places where we encountered God, and praise God that we did that, that He met us in those ways, as opposed to plopping down on the couch and watching these pretend stories, maybe side by side, but with very little engagement or reflection.
Yes. There's two dimensions to this, I think. One is, when you just watch the story rather than recount the story, it's a more passive role, right?
Yes.
The other thing, and this is tricky, but these stories that we are served up through our entertainment media, like Netflix and others, are, and when you study like how they're made, and I've benefited so much from studying, for example, screenwriting, even though I'm not a screenwriter, but I have read a lot and learned a lot from people who do screenwriting and who teach screenwriting. You discover that part of why we want to sit down and watch these stories is they're so much more compelling than real life. So
yes.
First of all, the people are almost always more beautiful than anyone around us, and more generally more charismatic, more attractive, more interesting. And then the dialogue, dialogue in film is crafted so every single thing that any character says advances the plot and advances the fundamental conflicts, the kind of stack of conflicts that make up a great story. And our own lives feel so kind of thin beside that. When in fact, if you paid real attention, and if you are actually letting your life be reshaped into the life Jesus wants you to live, there is so much drama in the world, and there's so much life out there. But it takes a kind of attention to it, and it takes telling it to other people so that they help you discover the stakes and the drama in the seemingly fairly mundane life you have compared to the Kardashians or whoever. And so but the problem is if you spend all your time watching these highly designed experiences of like narrative maximum stakes and maximum compellingness, you lose the ability to see that your own life is incredibly consequential. There are incredible stakes. There's incredible humor in it. There's incredible tragedy in it. And we lose the ability to tell our stories the way that people used to be able to do.
Yeah.
So these are the trade-offs, and it's why, even though I absolutely believe we can learn from all the arts and film and television, which is kind of downstream from film in some ways, to me is absolutely one of the glories of human culture. And we can absolutely learn from the people who practice that at the highest level, just like we can with music or literature or whatever. But if it becomes if consuming it becomes the only thing we know how to do, and we don't know how to make a story out of our own lives, oh man, we're missing out. That's why you need to, you do need to cancel it from time to time, at least, to find out, am I living a life worth being excited about? Or am I just getting vicarious excitement from ultimately fictional people, even if they act and look real?
Yes, and even learning to reinterpret or see for what it actually is, the experiences that you have. I even just think about like the people that you run into. I mean, those are like potential spin-off stories right there of like what this secondary character that we know very little about. What if we dug into that person's life a little bit and actually got to like what new adventures would it crack open for us, and brand new stories would we get to experience because I sat down and I had lunch with my coworker, and they told me the story about like their family of origin, and we've had a whole lot of rain in Minnesota recently, and they tell me the story about like their basement getting flooded and how their community came around them and like helped them clean up like those kinds of things that you're like, boy, there is a lot more adventure especially if I stop comparing it to something that is so built, like
That's
just
right.
Manufactured
Stylized.
adventure.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And almost like stopping taking a drug and letting your own brain chemicals be the things that give you physical experiences. I feel like that would be the same thing if we stopped watching manufactured stories or toned down the amount of manufactured stories we watch and engage with our own lives and the lives of the people around us. Andy, not wanting to be people that are just saying, well, just crumple it up in a ball and toss it over your shoulder for the rest of your life. Because you say there is beauty to be experienced. There are things that we can learn from artistic expression and from these types of art forms. So are there, and you've already given us a couple of insights into this, but can we keep going down the road of, are there ways that you would advise, especially a young grad, this early, really unique season of life that they find themselves in? Are there things that you would recommend to them as far as developing healthy rhythms around entertainment or even just broader media engagement in these early days of this season?
Yeah. Well, in some ways, the thing you get to do only once in life when you're young is to develop, if I can use this word, it sometimes sounds sort of elitist, but it's to develop taste. It's like to know what kinds of food taste amazing. Like, what is a great peach? What's an incredible mushroom pizza? What's like the best bulgogi, that amazing usually, flamed at the table Korean meat,
nice
beef, and you develop taste by going to the places where anything, whether it's food or whatever, is done at the highest level. So the main thing I would say is go for the best, not the most recent, because the most recent is not the best. Most of what is recent, that is, most of what's on Netflix today and what the algorithm will serve up for you because the commercial incentives require it, will not be thought of 100 years from now as the best. But the amazing thing about contemporary media and streaming services in particular is much of the best, not all of it, unfortunately, but much of it is out there.
Yeah.
So if I can back up one click, I would just say, being intentional is like step one. So rather than the worst thing, and one of the things I really admire about my daughter, who's just a few years out of college, is she has a no algorithm rule in her media consumption. She won't use social media that present you an algorithmic feed, which means she's not on she's not on TikTok, she's not on Instagram. But there are a couple that you can avoid the algorithm, and then she won't take the algorithm suggestions, like when it says if you liked this, you might like this. So just being intentional, not letting some algorithm take over your choices. And then what are you intentionally doing? You're saying, I want to go with the limited amount of time I have that should be devoted to like consuming what others have made rather than becoming the kind of person who can create it. I ought to seek out the best. And that's going to mean you're going to watch stuff, in the case of screen-based stuff, from roughly the last 100 years, and it's pretty evenly spread out. There's an amazing cut of a film with lots to be said about it. It's not like a perfect or entirely morally exemplary film, but the first Indiana Jones movie, which Steven Spielberg made very early in his career. The director, Steven Soderbergh, took Indiana Jones and unauthorized, rendered in black and white, took out all the color, and got rid of all the dialogue and puts a Trent Reznor musical soundtrack to it.
Whoa.
And I tell you, to watch what Steven Spielberg is doing as a visual artist, as a cinematic storyteller with Indiana Jones, this pop movie that probably everybody's seen, but you watch it in black and white and you don't have the dialogue. You just have this kind of soundtrack from
Trent Reznor.
Yeah, it's a soundtrack from The Social Network actually behind it.
Okay.
But it's just there to sort of be background music.
Yeah.
And you watch every shot and how genius it is and how perfectly paced it is and how everything is placed in the frame for a reason. And you just see this film in a completely new way. Now, you don't have to watch with that level of intensity, but you do need to be seeking out okay, what were Spielberg's greatest movies? But what were, I don't know, Kurosawa's greatest movies? What are the greatest things people have done with this medium of a rectangular screen?
Yes.
And now, is there a time to just kind of divert yourself and sort of veg out? No.
Okay.
If you need to relax, you probably should just sleep, right? Get more sleep, have less need for leisure. And then when you sit down to watch a glowing rectangle, like watch something worth watching, whether it was made a year ago or 90 years ago. I mean, and that's why we don't actually watch that much of this stuff myself in our house. And it's why I actually don't listen to that much recorded music, even though I love music. I'm a musician. I need to spend most of my time making music, my free time, because I'm not a professional musician primarily.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of time in my life. If I'm really doing the things I'm meant to be after, I've got to choose the best. The best.
Yeah. I really appreciate that you're, it feels like an invitation to elevate the format and say, like, as you said, what does it look like to choose the best? Like, if I'm going to do this, then is there a way that gives me the best shot at seeing something that is beautiful, that is thoughtfully made, that will stand the test of time, that will be worth investing this extremely limited, at least in this version of it, this extremely limited resource that I have, which is my time. Yeah. Like, I need to be thoughtful about the places that I invest it. And if it's stepping in to be numbed or diverted or distracted, there's probably a better thing for me to do with that, which is to either sleep or to have a conversation with a trusted confidant or to sit in scripture and in prayer with the Lord if I need something like that. He could probably provide the best of that for me. But if it is an opportunity to experience art in this form, then okay, let's aim for the stars here and get something that is really tasteful and well done, and that maybe then gives us the opportunity for a social interaction afterwards of like, I got to tell you about this movie, and here's a couple of themes that came up. Could we talk about this and discuss, like, what does this mean? What should I do with this? I think that that's really helpful as far as an invitation to be thoughtful and purposeful in the ways that we engage with our entertainment. Andy, I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much, and I need to apply that more to my own life.
Well, so do I, because to be clear, though I don't do it with kind of film and TV entertainment, there are other ways that I opt out of real life every day. And my own distractions, my own diversions, but I just know, like, it's not the path toward life, and so we're all constant. And this is why we need Sabbath. It's why we need these rhythms. It's why we do need a good night's sleep every night. We can get it because it helps you make better, clearer choices than you do when you're kind of under pressure or fatigued. Yeah. So we're all on a journey to do what Jesus did, which is every moment of his life brought something new into the world. He never had a conversation that just rehashed things. He never had a boring conversation. he never was bored. And it's not because he had lots of entertainment. It's because he was living kind of the full human life. So we're all, especially when you're just starting out, my gosh. And frankly, you're starting out way behind the starting line of all other human beings who did not have these incredibly addictive delivery systems and these incredible commercial incentives to get you hooked. So we're all learning. We're all emerging from the fog into real life.
Yes. Andy, as we think about kind of bringing our time to a close here, I always ask my guests, I broaden back out again. And I just ask, thinking again about our audience, alumni in this first year of life after graduation, whether you want to relate it to entertainment and media consumption and relationships there, or just keep it even bigger picture. Do you have a final word of advice or encouragement that you would give to an InterVarsity alum in their first year of life after graduation?
Well, maybe two. I mean, the first is, generally speaking, and acknowledging the exceptions, it gets better from here. It's the first year specific. My first year out of college was, to date, I'm 57 years old, by far the hardest year of my life. Actually, not I was going to distinguish the hardest and the worst. I think it was both. Okay. There was another year that was very hard, but I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I was. I was not being obedient to God, even with my limited. I was just really, really adrift my first year. So, and I meet so many people for whom this is true. I think it's been fairly true for my own kids who recently went through this. So just hang in there. Jesus loves you more than you can possibly imagine. His redemptive capacity for whatever you're going through is like so beyond your asking or imagining. Just hang on. And then the other thing I would say a little more practically related to this is if you haven't yet developed a practice of Sabbath, boy, now's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Because the other thing, life is going to get on the whole more manageable, probably. I'm not making any promises on behalf of the universe, but I will tell you the thing it doesn't get is less busy or less demanding of your time. And if you, the time to start practicing one day of true letting go of everything that you use to secure yourself, to identify yourself, to give yourself status, to make sure you're providing, all those things that we do that are the good results of work at its best. Get in the rhythm of one day a week, laying it aside, and discover how much better God is than you can possibly imagine in the work and the rest.
So, should you cancel Netflix? Sounds like the answer is fairly straightforward. If you've never done it before, then yeah, you should try it. See what life is like without streaming services. Or if most of your entertainment comes from Instagram and TikTok, delete them for a set amount of time and see what that's like. But the bigger question is, what purpose does entertainment, streaming services or otherwise, serve in your life or in the life of any Christ follower? Is it providing access to thoughtfully curated artistic experiences that result in kingdom-oriented living? Or does it simply serve as a distraction from reality, some me time that would be better spent sleeping or sitting with the Lord? That one's pretty convicting for me personally, alumni. In the whole picture of history, we're still exploring this space of consuming recorded entertainment and having such privileged lives that we have room to sit and do something other than survive or get rest so that we can continue to survive tomorrow. I imagine most people in history would think that what we do is pretty unnatural. Maybe their life rhythms provide some insights into how we should be living today. Andy, thank you so much for joining us. I greatly appreciate our conversation, and I really look forward to some future jam sessions together. Alumni, come back next week as we ask the question, who am I? Until then, consider sharing this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and I will see you. Thanks for listening to After 4. This podcast is brought to you by the InterVarsity Alumni Relations Team, hosted and produced by John Steele, production assistance by Mike Santera, edited by Caleb Leppert, and our After 4 theme music was written and performed by John Steele.